What's going on, everybody? Today is Friday, October the 23rd, and that means it's time for my news radar. So over the last couple of months, a great number of my YouTube subscribers have found me through my videos on the Surface Duo. And unfortunately, I have some potentially bad news to share about the Surface Duo with you guys. Obviously, I've talked about my experience with Duo, how it's been generally pretty positive, and as how, more time goes on, it seems to be getting more and more positive. We've also talked about the issue some people have been having with their USB-C port cracking. We've talked about how, maybe this thing is so insanely thin that maybe it's almost too thin, and that USB-C port there, it's basically as thick as a USB-C port. So maybe it's so thin that you're going to potentially have some breaking happening. Well, now we have another new hardware problem showing up for at least some people. If we jump over here to the Surface Duo subreddit, what you're going to see here is a thread where they're talking about swelling. Now, obviously, this phone has two screens, and it also has two batteries, right? So there is a separate battery in each half of this device. That's how they were able to fit what's not a big battery, but a serviceable battery in something that is this incredibly thin. And batteries will occasionally swell. And so what it seems like might be happening here is that, and you can see in this picture, it's not super dramatic, but there's some swelling there. And when he flips it around so that the screens are facing out, you can see it more clearly there. It's not actually closing flush all the way down because it's actually beginning to bow. Now, this is disconcerting in and of itself. Obviously, if you have this device, the first thing I'm going to do is reach out to Microsoft and say, hey, this thing should be under warranty. Let's get me a new one sent out. The problem there is going to be you're going to have to mail it to them. They're going to look at it. It's probably going to take 2-3 weeks for you to get a new device back. That is super unfortunate. And look, we've seen other devices do this in the past. We've seen, take a pic of a phone. You can probably find somebody somewhere with a swelling battery and the screen's popping off or whatever. Usually it happens much later in the device's life cycle. So that's the concerning part there, is that it's happening for some people very early. What's even more concerning is that if you scroll through this thread, you get multiple people expressing the same problems. This person's saying it was like that when they received it, and that theirs hasn't gotten worse, but they can understand someone's concern. This person says that theirs actually cracked today because it was swelling. This person says they had it and they replaced the device. Here's another person saying that it's happening to them, but it's not been bothering them. Here's another person saying that it's happening just the same. Here's a person that's had 3 different Duos. I can go on and on and on. This thread is just chock-a-block with people saying, hey, mine's swelling too. Now, there's varying degrees of this. Some people say, hey, mine is swelling, but it's only a little and it's not really causing me any problems. Other people are, having their device crack or, much more severe swelling. We actually want to take a brief second here and point out a YouTube video here by Tech Odyssey, where he actually, this is another YouTuber, same kind of problem. You can see the bow going on his device. And he wound up having to, what he did is he actually wound up buying one from Microsoft and then sending that one back as a return so that way he could get one more quickly. He talks about how, hey, you'd wish that maybe you'd get the thing, at a cheaper price or something like that. But no, he wound up having to pay the exact same price as he paid before. Super disappointing. And it's really concerning to me that so many people are evidently having this problem. So this next news story is actually pretty cool to me. So I've got that thing called the Google Nest Home Hub. I think that's what it's called. I don't know. Maybe Google isn't even in there anymore. But basically what it is one of their little home speakers, which have been rebranded from Google Home speakers to Nest speakers. And instead of just being a speaker, it's got a little screen there up top. It's pretty cool. It'll sit there and it'll show you slideshows of art or your pictures or whatever you want it to do. And if you do something like start a timer, it'll actually display it there. And it generally just behaves like a home speaker, but with a screen. Well, about a few months after I bought mine, which was right at release, they rolled out a feature that was very strange to me. So if you have like a timer or something going and you approach this thing, it knows that you're walking up to it, and it changes the UI that, so that you can actually touch something and do something. Normally it's just the full screen countdown. You approach, it changes into a UI that you can cancel or pause the timer. It actually is using, I believe it's ultrasonic. It's using some sort of radar, essentially, or sonar, I guess would be the more correct term, to detect that, hey, someone is approaching me. I'm going to now make myself available to be interacted with. So excuse the mess in the house here a little bit, but if I were to approach the timer while running here, it's going to actually sense me coming, and the UI will change, giving me the ability to pause or cancel that timer. And then if I move away from it, it should return to the normal UI. There we go. So now it's gone back. Now I'm gonna try and silently approach. It senses me coming, and there you go. Well, apparently some people have uncovered a way to enable on this exact device the ability for it to begin listening for, commands without saying the hotkey, so the hot word. So instead of saying, okay, blank, I'm not going to say it because I hate it when people on the TV say it, and then on my speaker is like, hey, and then it starts listening, and my TV gets muted for a minute, and it's a terrible thing. So I'm not going to do that. But basically, you would walk up to the thing, and it would begin listening for your command. And this video here actually demonstrates weather. He didn't say the hot word, he just said weather, and there it is, it's going. So now, in theory, this is actually really, really cool for me to be able to just walk up to the thing and say, hey, and ask it whatever I need to ask it, start a timer, whatever, without having to say the hot word every time I wanted it to do something. Now, the problem that I have there is that I wonder how consistent it can be. I don't want this thing listening in anytime I get anywhere near this thing. If I'm, it's pretty sensitive. I can be, several feet away and it can see me coming if I'm in a long direct path. So I don't necessarily want this thing, randomly picking up what I'm saying if I'm 10 feet away. I would rather wait till I'm right up on it to enable this feature. But it's still really cool, and it's almost like a light version of the Project Solely that they had in the Pixel 4, where you could wave your hand over it, or it would know you're about to pick it up, and it would start doing the face unlock stuff before you've actually even raised it or even picked it up yet, because it knows that you're about to pick it up. It's really cool, and I'm really curious to see if this gets rolled out and how well it's going to actually work. So let's talk about a game that I don't really play. Actually, I just don't play. I don't know why I qualify that with really. It's probably been over 6-8 months since I've played it. But anyways, very popular game called Fortnite. So games have gotten really out of hand huge. Everyone picks on Call of Duty for being, whatever it is, hundreds of gigabytes at this point. Well, Fortnite's not that great either. It's like 90 something gigabytes right now. And it's getting really frustrating that when you want to play one of these games, it's going to download. And even if you have fast internet, it's going to take a long time. Now, this is something that, game streaming services like Stadia or xCloud really kind of nip in the bud because there's no download needed. But if you want to play these games locally on your computer or on your console with no latency, no input lag, downloading it is the only thing that you can do. And with these new consoles, having really expensive storage and starting with, usable storage less than a terabyte on both of them that's going to be accessible to you. When a game like Fortnite is 90 gigabytes, that's a problem. So these games are beginning to actually scale themselves down. In fact, Fortnite tweeted just on the 20th that this new patch that's coming out is going to be 27 gigabytes, which is to make optimizations on PC resulting in massively reduced Fortnite file size over 60 gigabytes smaller downloads for future patches and improved loading performance. This is something that needs to happen pretty much across the board. Now, Call of Duty has recently implemented the ability to only have installed the game modes that you want to play. Let's say you're like me and you don't really care about Call of Duty, but you might play Warzone every now and again. Well, you can uninstall everything but Warzone, kind of, and reduce your install size. This is the way things need to start going, in particular, keeping these new consoles in mind where these hard drives are not that big. I have total something like 5 or 6 terabytes of storage on my computer. I'm not super concerned about the stuff taking up space. It's more just the annoyance of having to download something. In fact, I still have Fortnite installed simply because I don't want to have to ever download it again, because it's 90 gigabytes and it takes a long time. My internet is something like 350 megabits per second, but that still takes, several hours to get downloaded. So I'm really pleased to see Fortnite really cutting down on their install size, and I think everybody needs to be watching what they're doing. Call of Duty, making these things more piecemeal and reducing that size. People are going to need that to happen. And last but not least, let's talk about something that some of you may not care anything about, but I care a lot about. I'm a big fan of PUBG. I've been playing PUBG since it was still an alpha, since it was absolutely, utterly broken. And I've played it since before there was a first-person perspective. In fact, I remember when they rolled out first-person perspective. A lot of people, when FPP came out, they switched over to it from third-person perspective because they were used to playing Call of Duty and things like that. Well, for me, I grew up playing SOCOM. So for me, third-person perspective felt right. It felt comfortable, and it was where I learned to play the game. So I just never changed. And in fact, globally, the majority of players are playing in third-person perspective, although that is not necessarily the case in North America. Well, why am I talking about PUBG perspectives, first person, third person, so forth and so on? Well, the patch 9.1 just rolled out, and it added a really odd change here. So basically, in North America, third person perspective will no longer have a duos queue, only solo and squad. Here's my problem. I play this game almost exclusively third person duos. I've got a buddy that I play most of my video games with, and this is one of the games that we played a lot of. We played, 1,500 hours of PUBG third person duos. This mode has been removed from North America. The game mode that we've been playing pretty much the entire time just doesn't exist anymore on PUBG. Now, your first thought would be, I guess that PUBG Corp is just trying to push North American players to just go play first-person perspective. Let's just get everybody in one perspective and stop splitting up our player base. And I could almost understand that, but they're still solo, they're still squad. They just got rid of duos, so that's weird to me. I mean, I feel like, maybe is duo the least played, mode in third-person perspective? That seems weird that it would be. You would think maybe solo would be, or who knows. Just seems odd that duo would be the least played, so why would you remove duo? And then the other strange thing is they just released a new map, this new dynamic map called Paramo, and the only way you can play it is third-person perspective squad. So if you're trying to push people over to first-person perspective, why does the new map only have third-person perspective? And if you don't care about it, then why did you remove duos? You've got bots. If enough people aren't playing duos, just fill it in with bots like you have been. Nothing's really been that bad. It's been an okay experience, really, the last several months. Nothing really terrible has happened. So it seems really arbitrary that you would just remove this game mode. And honestly, for me, what's going to happen is, if my buddy doesn't want to play first-person perspective, or, it's an entirely different game in first-person perspective, so I might not want to play in first-person. It's a completely different game. The way it's played is entirely different. In third person, you can see around a corner without actually exposing yourself around the corner. So when you push buildings, you have to be very careful and you have to flank in different ways. In first person, you're going to play much more quickly, much more action-oriented. You're not going to really worry about things in the same way. You can push a corner that you can't push in third person because no one's going to be peeking it in that same way. So it's just a different game. It plays more like Call of Duty than it does PUBG. And again, if this is what you want your game to be, then why is Paramo third person only? It's really hard for me to wrap my head around why this is happening, and it's really frustrating. So consider that my small rant about PUBG for this video. There's been a lot of PUBG content posted on the channel over the years. I love PUBG. It's kind of an abusive relationship. I'm not sure that it often loves me back. And clearly it doesn't, because they've removed my game mode. They've removed the game mode that I play almost exclusively. So massively disappointing. We need a game like PUBG that is going to be ran a little bit better and is going to be handled a bit better than PUBG has. And I wish that game existed. Warzone was close-ish, but not quite. And the hacking problem is really bad in that game. It might even be worse than it is in PUBG sometimes, which is crazy, but it's really bad. Who knows? I need a new game to play, I guess, because PUBG has done gone and abandoned me. So guys, that is my news radar for the day. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next edition of my news radar where I talk about the gaming, tech, and nerd culture news that I thought was important for the day. So until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. If you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a Scary If Literal member. You'll get access to a whole bunch of emoticons to use with live streams and a shout out on an upcoming video. Thanks as always for your continued support.